Okay, we should be live any second. And just to ensure that everybody can hear me, we should be live. Okay, so welcome back. This is, I guess, part 2 of Bukkit plugin coding, as I mess up the name there. So I did a little research and came up with what appears to be a pretty decent configuration manager. Now this is made by somebody named Foodieling, right there, and I will see if I can put the link in the description. Obviously this is a live stream, so it's a little bit harder to I don't know. I'm just not exactly the best with figuring out all of YouTube's ins and outs, but I'll put that in there, and hopefully that updates and puts that in the description, but whatever. I feel like I'm gonna sneeze too. Hang on. Oh man. There it is. Okay, so got a few things to get started with right now. So the configuration manager, the purpose is to provide a method of creating, modifying, reloading, and whatnot custom configuration files. And there was an issue actually with the load configuration files, and let me explain exactly what the issue was. So down here we have this line, input stream equals caller.getResource resource path. And what was happening originally was this line down here was throwing an error. Now at that point it just said input stream right here. It did not have input stream reader. I added this line in and modified this line to use this. And the reason for that, I mean, I'm not fully fluent as to why they decide to change things, but let me pull up a browser here. So on this page here, we can see the two different ways that we can interact with the load configuration constructor. We can either create a create it with a file or a reader. It used to be able to use a an input stream. However, that method was depreciated and is now removed, and because we're in 1.12 and the configuration manager was originally posted, if I could find the page here, this was posted on July 4th, 2013, so a whopping, what was that, 5 years now? Holy crap, that's crazy. So yeah, 5 years ago today, or not today, but 5 years ago that was posted, so that's old. But I've fixed that. There were actually 3 instances of that, so you'll see I also added it down here, and I added it right here. So all of those have been adjusted. Now I have yet to test this. I was just so happy. I guess I just decided let's do this. Let's start a stream and continue. So what we need to do now is kind of stumble through how all these methods work. So let's take a look at the different things. So I suppose we create a don't even know. So, okay. We have a nested config path class, which I think isn't what we're meant to look at. We've also got the configuration class, but I'm looking for the constructor for the configuration manager, which is right here. So you just pass it a plugin instance, which in this case you would just write this if I were to use this class up here. And alright, seems to work fine. Then, oh hey, you know, I actually didn't know that you could use this notation with Java. I was always under the assumption that you had to use the plus concatenation kind of method. Interesting. I mean, I knew this was a thing from, like, C, but I just never knew you could do it in Java. I guess it makes sense because C and Java are very closely, very close to each other. A lot of the syntax is just really similar. You'd be surprised. Like, I learned C last semester, and I was just like, wow, this is very, very similar. So, the methods we can invoke on a configuration manager object, we start off with load config files. And this loads all of the configuration files. And you give it either a configuration path or configuration paths. And I'm not familiar with this this notation. If I don't know that I've ever seen that. My guess is that you can give it a single config. Oh wait, no. I'm actually really not sure. Why the 3 dots? I was gonna say I thought maybe it was so that you could give it one path versus a bunch of paths. But it's just a collection, so we kind of have to figure out how that works. Then down here we have a save configuration, which also takes log error here. So the one that we actually are going to use is this one down here, most likely. This one just does this method internally, which is fine. This one saves all of the configs, which could be useful if you're editing a lot of them at once. These ones reload them. This one reloads all of them, unloads it, which I don't really know what that does, or unloads all. Get config, which at that point, okay, so this seems relatively simple, I suppose, but I'm not 100% I'm not 100% sure how we get started with this. So that's where we're going to do some experimentation. So load config files here seems to be the thing of interest. But first let's construct a config manager. So I'm actually gonna remove these, and we're just gonna kind of get started here. So config, actually let's instantiate it up here. Or we'll create the variable up here, and then we can instantiate it within, or define it. Or I don't know what the proper term is. Config manager. We do that, and then we do config manager equals new config manager plugin instance this. Okay, so we've created our configuration manager. Now we can do config manager dot get config, get file config, load config, reload config. Probably would have been good if I didn't delete the what I had just written there. So get config or get file config. Let me actually do that. We'll retype that in a second. We're gonna leave those there for now as an example. Config manager, and then I had in here config manager equals new config manager this, and then config manager dot. So this appears to use get config. Now what I am interested in seeing is what is get config returning. Get config returns a file configuration. So by that logic, we should use the one that returns a file configuration right here. Then config name, so let's call it config.ym or string config.yml, like that, right? Get file and then dot options dot copy defaults true, like that. And then get file config config.yml. And like I said, I'm just testing here. Options or actually save config? No. Options.save. How do we save that? Is there a different means to save? Configuration manager dot save config config.yml. Let's try that. Right? So we'll remove these two. They're not relevant anymore. And then we will what did I want to do? I want to remove the two files here. We'll actually just delete the crew chat folder there. And then if we start it, we should see some things happen. Or at least hopefully. Or everything comes crashing down. Like what seems to be happening. Okay. So we have a null pointer exception at the on enable, line 15, right here. It should gracefully not do that, but it did. I guess we can implement that, but get file config here, config.yml, so that's the wrong way to Where's the get method? Reload, unload, unload, get file config. Returns null if not found. Yeah, but maybe we have to load them first? I wish I had an implementation of this. I guess we have to load them first, but what is config paths? What does it want for that? So I see the loading thing, sort of. So let's comment those out. I'll also stop this. But let's comment those out and try config manager dot load config files. Now I don't know what it wants. load config files config.yml, but config paths. What is a config path? I don't quite understand what it wants here. I have an idea. Interesting. Configuration manager dot get manager dot setup this. What does that even mean? Why is it capital like that? That's odd. He has written config manager dot get manager dot set up this, like that. So where is that? Where is this get manager method? Weird. Maybe his is different, but apologies. I realize I'm literally just sitting here staring at something on another screen. I'm just trying to understand where this get manager thing comes from. That's really weird, and I really don't get it. Because that get manager method seems to, it must come from somewhere, right? But where? Wait a minute. I see now. Setup. What is setup? Interesting. Okay. We're gonna try new file. P. S dot get data folder. Yeah, okay, so that's the path. What else is it? What else would it be looking for? Hang on. Load configuration loads a file. Yeah. Okay. So path. What is a config path? Where is this? Oh. Config name, resource path, output path. What is... So I understand the config name. I don't understand the resource path and the output path there. Whew. What is a resource path? Okay, just gonna do, I don't really know what those are supposed to be. Do something. If I can't figure it out via Googling, I'm going to figure it out by experimenting. 18 it didn't like. See if it does the same thing with 19. So regardless of that, let's look at the load config files again. Let's see what happens if I set them both to null. Null is always a good thing to try. Still didn't load it. File name cannot be null. Okay. So that would mean that we would be down here. Otherwise it just doesn't do anything in there. And this wouldn't fire. This wouldn't fire. Yeah. Okay, so it seems like it's creating a config file. New file. Where is config folder? Output path should be config.yml, and then resource path is, where are we looking for our resource path? Right here. When we look at the input stream, get resource. Let's just set them all to config.yml. And let's just ensure here it's still empty, so we can just delete that again. And we'll stop this and start it again and see what happens. Oh, we didn't get an error this time. And oh, we have it. I think we've done it, guys. Yeah. Can I just close all but this? No. That, I am very, very happy about that. I'm actually just gonna move move that down so it's not there. So we didn't need to use this yet. I'll leave it there for now. But I'm actually gonna undo that and do it here. New configuration. Actually, that's still too long. No, it's not. It's kind of too long. That way, kind of format them a little nicer. And now, if we do save all configs, they're not save. Yeah, we just now let's delete this. We'll do this again. So everything seems to work. We now have this one as well, and it's copying correctly. So my next test is if I edit one of these files here, right? So let's say I do like well, actually, no. We can't. Yeah, we can. Can we edit it here? We might. Let's say I make test 2. Like that. So we've closed that. Let's. Oops. What is that? Well, that would be useful instead of going into the file menu. So we stop that and start that again. Now we should see. Wondering, will it have reset that file? No, it did not. Okay. That's actually really useful. So if you load the configuration files and the file doesn't exist, it will create a new file for you with the defaults defined in the file representing that file in the resources folder of the project or of the plugin. But if it does exist, it doesn't modify them. which is exactly what we want. So that's perfect. That's actually really awesome. Which means that we don't actually need this method here. And this entire thing covers all of the configuration stuff. And if we want to, we can add as many configuration files as we want. And I am thoroughly impressed with this configuration manager. So I'm sure he's not watching, or she, but Foodieling, this is a really awesome little configuration manager that you've created, and I am 100% satisfied with it. So thank you. Now, that being said, what we need to do is, man, I just lost my train of thought. But man, that took a long time to do. We spent almost an hour getting that to work. But all of that trial and error seems to have been the best method of getting that working. So configuration section. Sure. So we have a configuration section, and I guess this should really go below it. That. But now we kind of have to get started with doing stuff. So we have the chat listener here. I wonder, do we also want to should this plugin also manage the login and logout messages? I mean, it's part of chat, but it's kind of a separate utility. Like, you know what I mean? It's like it's not a chat message. It doesn't specifically relate to chat. So I think I'm gonna ignore that stuff and kind of create a separate plugin for that. Anyway, so right now our config.yml file doesn't really have anything in it. But it will. Eventually. I guess maybe we should structure our player data. So let's say we have our player. So the players are going to be organized by UUIDs. So players. I guess we don't really need to just do random random UUID. So we don't, I'm not gonna write down a UUID because I honestly, you know, don't know. Let's see if we can get the language to whoops, Alt L Y. There's no Y's. YAML? Oh, it's already on YAML. Okay, good. Oh yeah, because it recognized the file extension. Man, my neck hurts. Ugh. Grab some water. Okay. Whoa. So at this point, we kind of need to start figuring things out. So a player would have an active channel. And what that would mean is that when they type into chat, that is the channel in which they're going to their message is going to show up in, as if they typed into that channel. So active channel, right? And that would just be one channel. So let's say it's members, right? Members? I don't know. Then we would also have subscribed channels. And in here, these would be all of the channels that they are listening to. So it's almost like you could, so there would be obviously the members channel. Then we also have is there supposed to be 2 spaces? I always forget with these. We'll figure it out. Then we'd have non-members. And then say this is me, I would also have the staff channel. Like that, right? So there are our subscribed channels, which means that any message sent in any one of those channels gets forwarded to me, right? I end up getting it. Then we have to look at, is there anything else, really? The subscribe channels, the active channel. Let's, I always forget I have multiple screens. I'm pulling up Hero Chat's configuration. Not that I'm, you know, trying to copy, but it may give me a bit of, where am I? So yeah, that might actually be all we need in this list here. Because otherwise, the only other things that they have are like some more, you can ignore PMs and things like that. That's not really of use to me. And actually, the way that this works is there is no space here. Or so it seems. It's just right there. But I think that's it. The active channel and the subscribe channels. So yeah. So by that means some possible commands for a system like this. Let me just possible commands. So a subscribe to channel command. Unsubscribe, and then channel. Switch channel? Just trying to think of, like, you know, what would you call that? I guess it would be switch, like, you know, or change the channel. You know, like, I'm thinking like TV. What do you say? I'm gonna change the channel, or I'm gonna switch the channel. Switch. I don't think any of these are commands. Channel. So that would cover, so you can subscribe to a channel, you can unsubscribe from a channel, you can switch to a different active channel. Switch active? I'm gonna just keep it at switch for now. What am I thinking of? List. And then we could do, so for that you could have list channels, you could have list members of a channel. I guess it would just be list channels. I'm gonna preface all of these with chat. Chat subscribe. Chat unsubscribe. Chat switch. Chat list. I feel like that's really all that they need. And we also have questioning. Is this still on? Where'd it go? Yeah, we're still in this. Let's see what happens. Ugh. I hate when it does this. There were some commands that with Hero Chat did not work. It wouldn't let me PM myself, and it also wouldn't let me, use /me. So I want to test those. Did that earlier too. Clicked into the wrong thing. So let's see. Me test. So /me is not being overwritten, I suppose. Which is good, I think? Or is that bad? Can we take over the /me command? I guess we can, right? Me message. And then all of the message commands. So what are all the message commands? You got MSG, tell, whisper, right? MSG, player, message, tell, player, message, and whisper, player, message, like that. Message, tell, and whisper. So all of those we'll also look at. And then I'm thinking some administrative stuff. Chat. Player. Chat info player. I'm also thinking chat info right there, and then we can kind of have like an admin version of that down here to give me information on other players. Chat info channel as well. Crew chat reload. that should be it, really. Chat. Maybe just like chat broadcast message. So what that one would be, chat broadcast message, that would be for me or as anybody that's an admin to send a global message that everybody can see regardless of what channels they are subscribed to. So let's just give these descriptions. I guess subscribes you player to channel, unsubscribes player from channel, switches player's active channel, shows all channels / players subscriptions and active channel. And there's one other, chat help. Command help. Player talks in third person. Send PM to other player. Send PM to other player. Send PM to other player. Chat info player. Shows other player active player subscriptions channel. Shows broadcast message to all channels. Reload config. So that way we have sort of like a rough outline of what we're kind of thinking is going to happen with this. We have sort of a rough outline of the player data, and before this, you know, gets destroyed here, let's example player data. So we'll do that. I'm also wondering if we should handle mail. I mean, I guess we could do something like inbox and then how could we do that? based on time, maybe. Time from message. Time from message. If you can count how many there are. We'll have to see. I don't know that you can have two that are the same like that. You may need to, like... Well, the times would be different. So that would work. I have to do random and random from player message blah from other player message blah. Then over here we just have mail and that would literally just be the mail UI thing, text UI. Okay, so it's now 9:30 and I've been doing this for over an hour, and to avoid getting these, I guess, episodes into sort of like a very long, drawn-out thing, I'm thinking it's probably about that time to cut off for now. If you are watching, thanks a lot for watching. So far, let's just recap what we've done, because that's probably useful. So since episode 2 began, or I guess we can kind of go back to episode 1. So episode 1 of this was sort of the beginning, just stumbling through trying to figure out what needs to happen to make the plugin start up. So we added our README, our POM, our license, the git ignore. We created a plugin.yml, and we started with the configuration. We also created the crew chat main class and the chat listener, which listens for any chat event. And then from there, I decided to stop so I could do some more research on configuration, and we came up with this config manager class here, which is made by FoodieLing, and I modified it to work with Minecraft 1.12.2, and we spent the rest of the time basically trying to troubleshoot how to set up those configurations, which that is shown in this configuration section here. And just after that, we took a break from, you know, solid coding and kind of came up with some objectives, like in terms of possible commands and an example of what the structure of the player data might end up looking like. Of course, we're not completely sure in any way, shape, or form what's going to happen. This is just currently a little bit of a scratch paper for what could be. It doesn't look like there's going to be a terribly large amount of very complicated coding, I guess. It's mostly just a lot of figuring out channels and permissions. So we're also going to have to list out some permissions here after. Maybe we'll start off episode 3 with that, or possibly I'll do that off camera and come back with a list of permissions to show. But we've got our possible commands. So just as an aside, permissions wise, you're looking at permissions for things like, do you have permission to be in this channel? Do you have permission to subscribe to a channel? Do you have permission to unsubscribe from a channel? Do you have permission to run this command, run that command? So most commands are going to have a permission associated with them, and most channels are going to have a specific permission. So subscribing to a specific channel will require that you have a permission for that channel, and then we're also going to need permissions for all the administrative things and mail and stuff like that. And then once we get all of that, we need to figure out permissions for, or not permissions, but we need to figure out, man, I just lost it. What was I going to say? I don't even remember. Holy crap. That was bad. Had it in my head, was saying something else, and I completely forgot. We need to figure out the, yeah, you can kind of see I'm, like, losing my train of thought a lot. I must be pretty tired. Wow. I really don't know what I was about to say. We also need to figure out something. It's on the tip of my tongue. Commands, permissions, reading all the variables in it, and we also have to structure the config file. So how channels are set up, and things like that, and what permissions they have, and stuff like that. So we'll be able to do all that once we get a little bit more written down with our plugin, I suppose, some more framework. So yeah, for now though, that should be it, and I guess we're gonna call it a night. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in episode 3.